Okay, let's continue. So I put my power on ultimate performance. You always put it on high performance or ultimate if you got there. In ultimate it doesn't stop the hard disks from working. So I jump back to ZBrush. Now we're going to make the cornea as well as the caruncle and the teal line, in the bottom of the eye. So I start with this. So rather than using the spherical mesh, I do this because whenever we want to render, the reflections become very clear and nice in here. And of course you can do that with spherical as well, and the rigging will be much easier in order to rig, but this is a slightly better. So I put my eye in there. Make sure I got the symmetry. I make those lines nice and smooth. Because it is low poly, I just want to use low intensity in the smooth brush. Always, keep some kind of reference next to your hand to see everything. And I make sure my minimum connection is set to 1. In that case, I can smooth the low poly regions, easily. I hate this 50. I just put it on 85, something reasonable. Okay. Make sure whatever you do, just put this bulgy effect in the middle. Okay, so we need to keep that circle in there. Now I'm going to paint it. But before doing so, we need to unwrap UV on it. So I quickly take this into Maya to unwrap. So Cornea Quad 1. Save it. Go to the Maya port. So this is it. I select it. You can do this in ZBrush too, but in here it's a little easier. So first we need to start with some kind of UVs. I create either normal base or planar. It doesn't make any difference. So I go in here. And I want to select the 3D cut, and so UV tool, right click, go to the edge, just double click in the middle to make it cut. And now I exit this tool, I go to UV again, I select them all using the face, and I press Ctrl U. Now the bigger one is the front part for sure, and you can see that from topology. So I make this really small because no one will see that. Make it small. Make sure you have this nice and centered. Let's look at this circle. Make it centered like so. And you can turn this on to see the texture better. And this is nice. Slightly tilted. Okay, that's it. You can either go Z that or just export normally. So export selection, do that, cornea UV. So you can do that with the sphere as well, but again, it's not that good. You can hide this, pinching in here, just by grabbing the edges and go to edit mesh and deleting them. But I think the quad is much better choice. So in here, to make sure that imports correctly, instead of using this import, go to my Z plugin, the subtool mask. I want to use a multi-append. That's very accurate, doesn't change the scale or position or anything. So I use this. So I'm gonna go ahead, I use some ready texture that I made before to start. So we have this, but we need to divide this in a couple of times. Up to 2 million would be working just fine. I want to go ahead and use this polypaint from texture, so I can use it, get rid of this texture, make sure this is turned off. But before doing so, I make sure my cornea is a little bigger to fill this region, because I want to use the caruncle. For the caruncle and the cornea and everything works correctly, we need to make sure these parts are completely close. So make sure you do that. So I push it to the right to fill this part a little. You can turn on transparency with ghost. As well as this part, make sure it is filled. That's really important and essential. Turn on dynamic. Okay. So we got polypaint on it. I want to select the paint brush from ZBrush default brushes, BP. There is paint. But I want to use this great new option. I want to use alpha 08. I want to go to my stroke and I want to turn this up to 1, all the way to 1. Maybe a little of the jitter. Why not? So in here I switch to skin shade 4. I just sample this. Just grab this sample and I just sample, hold on, and just sample like so. Just zoom in, make my brush stroke a little bigger. And it does this nice organic effect using this option and this alpha. Make sure whenever you do this like plus or cross to mix it better, and make sure you have bigger brush stroke. If you do this, it's gonna be really bad, so just make it bigger and do that randomly in different places, and turn this on transparency with go, so you can put your strokes through. This part is red, this is red, so wherever the eye wraps around the cornea becomes reddish on the cornea. And if you want to smooth, you can get rid of the Z ads and use the RGB for smooth, but this is fine. Instead you can grab this color and do this to fade that out nicely. So make sure you do this in the bottom and the top, because whenever you want to rig your mesh, it becomes clear, which is not a problem. Of course, you can always take your mesh back into ZBrush or Mari so you can repaint it. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use those alpha veins, those old ones, very old ones. So I start with this one, double click, and it comes on the texture. Make sure you click on make alpha, get rid of the texture. So I selected drag, and also want to use the add a little 5 or 6 and drop down this intensity. So I select from here, click on this cis palette, just make it in a slightly darker, and I do this, and I get rid of the jitter. Don't want to have any kind of jittering effect in there. Turn this up slightly, and again turn this on to brush through the mesh. Make sure whenever you do that you break it and keep some kind of reference next to your hand, and it has variation in color in it. Some of them are more pinkish and some of them kinda brownish reddish, so don't do them all the same. And make one, you know, bigger chunk in here, maybe with different Z intensity. Yeah, that's nice. Now I change the alpha, I grab this very busy one, make alpha, get rid of this, and use the add a little. And I just put, you know, some in here as well. Now I reset all of my brushes. Reset is located in here. Reset brush current on all brushes as well. So I just select this. I use the Z intensity as well as the RGB. So I just zoom in. I drop this dynamic brush scale. It is located in draw. I use this quite a lot. You can make your brush stroke really, really tiny or very, very big. I make it really, really nice. I make sure I got the roll distance really high, so this way I don't have any kind of weird, you know, artifacts in there. It makes the brush constant, you know, a straight line. This using this roll distance, and it is located in here. So keep that in mind, roll distance. And I don't want to have that much brush imperfection. So see this, a little more. It's very zigzag, you know. It's like life. It's so zigzag, you know. This is too much. Yeah. Change the color slightly. Yeah, that's enough for the purpose of tutorial for sure. So now I wanna put the Caruncle in there. So I duplicate this, get rid of the subdivision. Make sure I rename this to delete because this is only some kind of temporary object to put my mesh on it. So I select this IMM number 12, so BI number 12, make sure you grab it, just go in here, press in here, number 12. So there is single poly in there. And I just take the accurate curve. Accurate curve is located in here. Makes the brush sharper. So I split this. I'll just do this. Make this part pointy. You know, this part now grabs the cornea. It sticks to the surface, and this part goes out. This is very important to have if you want to have closer renders. So make sure you do that. So it has tilting effect. Okay. I just put in dynamic brush scale 1. This is ZBrush default value. Make it slightly longer because this part is gonna be masked. And one trick that I do, instead of using the extrude, because the unwrapping will be much easier, I don't extrude. Instead, grab the extrude and edge loop, and I do this. Then select the swivel, edge loop. And also for here, so I select the extrude, edge loop, and I do so for here as well as here. I do that one by one. Just grab this stitch and do so. Press on custom once, so whenever I'm lost, just click this back. So I bend this so to give that, you know, some kind of hallucination for the extrude. Turn on double. Cast to this. And to mark it, I can use my Z. Hold on Alt to polygroup it. Insert, slide, go hover over this face, select the polygroup, click, and press Shift to copy that polygroup. Okay, this is nice. So we need to make this part a little thinner. So we need to fix this. Check, fix, dynamic. Yeah, that's fine. Make this part flat and this part bulge out, you know, and inflate it. Just put another one. Don't do that too much because I wanna unwrap the UV a little easier. I wanna make that, you know, totally straight in Maya. Make sure you save your work constantly, not to get surprised by ZBrush. It's not that bad. It's not perfect, but it works. So I turn off the dynamic. I wanna grab this, Control W to make that one single polygroup. Caruncle. Switch to Maya. So I select it, go to UV editor, create something to start with, maybe planar, go to modify, and we could use something like optimize. Let me just grab them all. To make it a little better. Now I go to straight UVs in here. And just type 20 for now. You need to select. Yeah, that's not bad. So I select the vertex. So those white lines are your borders, which means that this blue ones needs to be inside. So that's so easy to read. Press B to use soft selection a little. Just decrease that a little. Okay, I'm trying to make it straight and nice. Just help Maya to see those borders better. So I grab those white lines and grab the blue ones and put them inside. So easy. You need to do that very low poly like we did to unwrap it easily. Just take your time and do this. So I select this again, go to modify, and repeat that same action. Maybe a little lower value. Yeah, that's better. I just changed this to tweak, not to get bothered with that, gizmo. Come back to this. Turn off the soft selection for now. And we're getting there. That's it. Really, spending time on this is worth it, I assure you. Once you have straight UV. modify, do this, maybe 20 now. Yeah, that's it. Just a little, and that's it, finished. I think this is enough. Maybe one more time. Yeah, let's test it to see what we get out of that. So I come back to this Caruncle. I go to object mode, press 3 to review that. We need to also make sure we have this new mesh from ZBrush because we moved it a little, right? So make sure to export that out, either using GoZ or just using by hand. Export that out. Face, new. Go back to Maya. Press import and the face, new version, right? So I selected and I grab this. I go to my hyper shade. And in the hyper shade, let me go to this. Caruncle. We're going to use a standard surface. Use my So I press tab and type ramp. So I fuse this, input this in the opacity. So I go to my geometry tab and there is opacity, right? So I middle mouse and let it go on the opacity first. So let me just grab this in there. Middle mouse and just put it there. And make sure you click on this texture so you can see that better. So all we need to do is just reposition everything. Let me get rid of this and this. Okay. So the direction is not right. You can either change your UV direction. You just go to U or V. Just change it. Because our UV is totally straight, it works really, really nice. So we keep these parts white. And we're making out some smooth transition in there. Hide that part. Of course, we need to sculpt on this too, but for now, we're just trying the shape. And also, I want to go to my subsurface. Just increase that all the way up. Turn this off. And if you want to sample the texture, you can export this. Test it better. Okay. Just keep this on so I can see a little better. And on Vahid 2, and I just change the scale to something like 1.1. Just give it some kind of color for now. There is some presets in there if you want to use it. Okay. And I click on this render. And in order to make the render faster, I go to my settings, I go system, 16. And also what I'm gonna do is I go ahead and go to my window, make sure I got this show 3D icon in there, 3D manipulation icon. So whenever it is there, you can use that as normal viewport. Just click this. Okay. Let me play this. Whenever it is selected, you can just rotate it easily like normal viewport. And my size is too large. Everything is too high, so I put 4 for renders and 2. Change that to progressive. And hold on shift. Can zoom in. Yeah, it's nice, as you can see. It's working just fine, but in order to see that better, we need to have some kind of texture in here and in here to judge better, but it's working, and we need to do some sculpting on this as well. So I turn this off for now so I can zoom in. Yeah, it's fine. Go grab the face, soft selection, and press B to turn it off, soft selection. Select this, graph materials from selected. So and we need to come back, of course, to ZBrush to paint this as well as this one. So let's do that. So I export this back. Or go Z that. Okay. Okay. And if you want to review your UVs, just drop this down, bump and press morph UV to see what's going on in there. And it is located in here. Bump and morph UV. Okay, so just making sure everything is nice and clean. Yeah, that's it. So I want to sculpt this. I want to get something like million. You can do that a little lower too. I go with this number. Okay, a sample from here. So I fill that. Make sure you have MRG turned on, not to have any error. Fill object. Size sample from this. Now let's turn this on. Okay. So I can sample from here. Again, paintbrush. imperfections, some kind of alpha, maybe 07. Now we need to mix this. Shift S to make a snapshot out of that so I can sample. So whenever you wanna grab from your canvas or wherever ZBrush sees that, hold on Alt and it grabs it for you. As you can see, I'm holding Alt and it's grabbing the blue color of my canvas. If I just drag it up to this point, it grabs this color. So there is a difference when you hold on Alt. With Alt it grabs whatever it sees, and without Alt it only sees the polypaint in there. Cannot read the texture or the canvas. So I hold down Alt and I sample from here. Select those veins. I want to have a little Z add. Drop this down quite a bit. Yeah. Now this one. And make them, some of them, more broad. Again, I sample this color. Reset my brush. Just paint here with normal brush to mix some of them a little better. You can go to flat mode using this flat and preview. I set that to left and right on my keyboard, and I turn this off, Z add, for this smooth brush. Just to smooth some of the parts, so I go a little lower because ZBrush projects back from the lower, so you need to go a little, one step lower, not too much. If you do so much, it'll project all the artifacts in there, which is not good. Go higher, smooth again, just to blend it a little better. A sample from this, I grab this brush just to mix it a little better. Transparency goes to brush underneath. Go back from flat mode. Now I wanna sculpt this a little. So I reset all of my brushes, select my Damien standard brush. I do so, and let's get rid of these imperfections. I just increase the roll distance all the way up. I just did press 1 to repeat same action. The angle is too much. I do something like this. Press 1. Yeah, that should be fine. I want to export, both displacement maps and maps for both cornea as well as this one, the Caruncle. So first I save. Okay, now I want to export the maps. For the Caruncle, I want to export maybe from level 3 to keep this line sharp. Side a little lower. So I turn this on, and this one on as well. So I go to displacement map. I want to keep the mid value at 0. The rest is just fine. I want to export as 32-bit. The PSD will do just fine. And I want to export as 4K. 4K would be just okay. And if you feel like you're missing something there, just come back and do 8K instead of 4K, and that's it. So export the mesh. Yes. Create all the maps. Cornea. So we're going to export to this folder. I want to test the displacement map, so turn those things off so I can test that. Import. This, higher one. AI standard surface. Rename that to Caruncle or whatever you like. File texture. So I have this, I click on it, refresh that, make that bigger. First I want to try the displacement map. So I load that in quickly. And this is it, the PSD file. I refresh that, make it bigger. And definitely this is too high because mesh is way too small. So I just decrease that and I just drop it in there, but we need to make sure we have enough subdivisions. Category. First with 2. Get rid of the iris. Just turn it off. Control H to hide it. Press render. Yeah, this is way too much. Select it again. Decrease that. Something like, something like this, 0.05. Yeah, again too much. Just drop it down even lower. And the reason is the mesh is too small. Now we're getting a very nice effect. As you can see. And just duplicate this quickly. this ramp, and I want to just input that in the opacity, this middle mouse, and just see that. Yeah, fades nicely. We can decrease that a little, but I think it's nice. So for the color, use the subsurface and just increase that all the way up. Just middle mouse drag to subsurface color. Sample this, darker a little. 0.1, maybe random walk 2, and rerun the render. And make sure your spec is too high, so change the roughness to something like 0.05. Select the texture in there. Change the exposure to 1. The spec is too much. Increase that a little. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, and I wanted to come back and make this line up to this point. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, that's lovely. So I want to do the same for the cornea. So from level 1, no need to export the mesh. And exactly with the same settings, just keep the mid value at 0 for the Maya. The rest is just fine. Export that out. It'll be fast because it is 4K. Come back to Maya. Maya. Standard surface. First, I start with displacement map. This is the PSD. It has some bluish color to it because of being PSD. Make it larger. Definitely this is so big, so I just first start with this number. Make sure it is subdivided as well. Just do that a couple of times depending of how many subdivisions you have in the ZBrush. So whatever it is, do that in here. It's better to export from level 2 or 3 because it keeps the surface a little better. So if you have any kind of issues depending on the missing of the details on your surface, just come back and export from higher level, and that's it. So there is no worries. Okay. I need to make sure it is set to raw. Alpha is luminance. Grab it and just put it in there. First, start with the displacement map. Click on this so I can zoom in. Remember that this is located in here. Show 3D manipulation. Yeah, it is there because we didn't put so much veins in there. I get rid of this for now so I can zoom in. Yeah, it's nice and there. I always keep your ZBrush open because all the time something is missing for sure. Unless someone is so perfect, I don't know anyone perfect. So always keep your ZBrush open, so just in case come back and tweak. So this is fine. Let's check this side as well. Turn this off for now. Grab this, press 3 to make sure it is smooth and nice. And I want to make that really mirror-like shape. So just put something like 0.04. Yeah. I click on this so I can zoom in and turn it off. Yeah, we got those veins. And again, if you don't like it, come back and add more. I think for the purpose of the tutorial is fine. And if you feel like there is a cartoony aspect in there, you can use something between the 0.1 and something lower. So if you feel like it is so cartoonish, just go ahead and increase that to 1. And you can play around with IOR. If you want to make it so broad, you can increase that to, let's say, 0.06 and check it. Yeah, this is so much. Just keep it in here. And for IOR, you have the presets as well. We can use the Cornea preset to see if it gives us a better result or not. Okay, so since everything is okay, we want to import the texture for the cornea itself, the color information, the albedo. So select this, go to my subsource, increase that all the way up, go to file, and in here I import that file in. Refresh, make it bigger, and definitely this is too saturated. Let's press 1 for exposure. So press again, it is converting to TX. Let's just put that 0 for now to make sure everything is fine. Okay. So I dropped this down quite a bit, something like 0.01 to make it work. Random walk 2, and for the subsurface color I sample from here, or you can use a map for it. Yeah, definitely the color is too saturated. You can either decrease that in ZBrush using new tools that you have for exposure and the other stuff. Let's do that in here. And let me zoom in using this icon. And I turn it off. Yeah, we're getting the veins and stuff in here. And to make sure everything is fine, I Control Shift H to take back the caruncle, or Shift H. Yeah, it blends really nicely. And for the caruncle, you can always play around with those options in there. Can either change this transition if you don't like it. And make this slightly bigger, this grayish, to have a better effect in there. So as you see, it blends really nice because of that very straight UV that we made in Maya. Okay. So I select this, I turn this off for now. Get rid of the subdivision, displacement map, and bump for now. I want to make the cornea some kind of masking for transmission. So I go to the cornea, I make some space for myself. So we need to go to transmission and just increase that all the way up. So tab, ramp, texture in there. Need to change that to circular for sure, and just do this and see that icon in there to preview what's going on in there. You need to have white in the middle and the black on the sides. Okay, so this is so simple. So I go transmission, I just grab middle mouse drag to the weight, and that's it. So I can click on this isolation, it becomes blue. I can review that. So you can play the render. You got the pupil in there. And to see that better, I just turn on the iris, Shift H. So I can see that better. Okay. Okay, we can select this and we can slightly move it. And to get rid of this wireframe, I just go ahead and remove this selection highlighting and select my gizmo in there. Let me make sure it is centered. Yeah. So I remove this tick so I can see what I'm doing. Just put that in here. So as you see, we need to make the eye a little smaller. We can do that, this iris part, we can do that either using the masking of the cornea, as well as the scaling down the mesh itself in the iris. So I select the iris and pupil group. And for now, I just turn this on to see what I'm doing. Grab this group. Make sure you click on the group to select them both at the same time. Now I get rid of this selection again. And we need to move the iris and pupil a little forward. Turn this on so I can see better. and it is so rotated, so just make it straight and nice. Okay. Okay, I do the rest in next chapter. We need to tweak a little the iris and the cornea. We need to add the tear line to the eye. Thank you. Okay, select the mesh. And I want to go to sculpting, grab the move brush, and I want to select symmetry, and I want to make the eyes a slightly smaller. Press 3 to smooth that out a little. Yeah, I like this filling in there. And if you want to decrease or increase the size of your brush, hold down B, go left, and go right. Hold down B, and just left mouse click, go to the left and right, and that's it. So one thing that I see, let me get rid of this cornea. The pupil size is too small, which is fine, but it's not very good for representing some kind of portrait, because when you have the pupil size very small, it represents the fear or very intense feeling, which is not good. So I grab the edge, right click and edge, grab this. Let me rename this iris. Select this edge. I press B to use the soft selection. Make that smaller. So I grab this and I just, make it a little larger and look from distance to see how it feels. And you can get rid of this using this, removing this, selection highlighting. You can see that from distance. Yeah, a little better. It's just a slightly larger. I think this is fine. Now I grab the press 3 and make sure I got the pupil right in there. So I turn this back on. ER. A little bigger to fill that cavity in there for us. Okay. I grab this group and I'll just put this down a little. Shift edge, come back, get rid of this again, so I can adjust a little. That should be fine. So select my cornea material in there. To this side. So don't be afraid of changes. It's very normal step of the process is tweaking. Just tweak this until I get to my desired effect. And just click on this, and I want to have some kind of nice HDRI, so I go to my sky dome, change this something a little higher, go to color, go to my HDRIs. use this one right in here. Yeah, I want to see that. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, this is nice and I like it. But I want to make this a little larger in the masking of the cornea. Larger. And I want to have a little of this grayish color, which is exactly what happens in the realistic way and in natural form. You have, some kind of little grayish margin in here, little, gray border in there. So, and next up, I want to go to my iris. And I'm just making sure everything is okay. So I grab this and exposure is low. Just, increase that a little to make it brighter. Go to subsurface, make this a little brighter. And this should be fine. It just, drop down the speck quite a bit. I don't want to have, so much speck in there because we received the speck from the cornea itself. Okay, so I make sure I got everything. And turn this off to have a slightly better result. Now to see things a little better, first I turn on everything back on. And I didn't like the previous displacement map in the iris. So I make sure I got that higher. So this is the iris. So I make sure I make it something higher, like 2. So I render this and it'll be much different now. And turn this on so I can zoom in here. I need to make this smoother. Oh, the effect is nice. Let me see that from here. So you see it is really nice. Although we need to change this the margin effect a little more. We need to make this smoother for sure. But this is very good, So I select my cornea. I want to make the speck a little more broad. So I go to my cornea material. Just change that something a little higher. Yeah, the rest is just fine. And if you want to, you could add secondary speck using the codes, but I think this is nice. I do one from distance. And I go ahead and I just grab the iris group. I just move it slightly to the right. And I see that again from this view. Yeah, that's better now. Yeah, I'm starting to like it now. We need to add a little extension to for the lashes so we can judge better. Okay, now I want to add this wet tear in here, so let's do that. Okay, now let's make this tear line in there. So I grab the cornea as well as the face. I want to duplicate them, Control G to group them, and I rename them to delete, because I only want to use them as temporary object to put mesh on top of it, and that's it. So this is the delete folder. I grab them all, go to my modeling toolkit, press combine. So make sure rename that to delete. So I isolate that, get rid of the textures, right click and assign new material Lambert to make it a little better to see, and I go press this live surface to make it live. Go to modeling toolkit, there is quadro, so I select it. Click, click, shift click, 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 shift click, 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 shift click. And so you just adjust it like this. Click, click, shift click, 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 shift click, or just hold on tab and just drag this out. So that's it. I always have some kind of reference. It's comes up to this point, then it goes down. It's kind of tilting and curvy, so keep that in mind. It comes and goes like so. So that's it. And if you want to get rid of the dots, and just use this, clear the dots. Okay. So I continue to this edge. So it goes from the bottom of the cornea towards the lower eyelid. So keep that in mind. Just push this towards the forward. And just reposition those points. Reposition those points. Hold down Control to add, some loops here and there. And if you want to, you can again do some straight UV for this in your UV editor. But since we are using transparency, this line won't be really, that much a problem. So if you want to, if you feel like there is a problem with this line, just make opacity map for it, and like the Caruncle part, and just remove that. So I think this is fine. I get rid of this, click this off, quattro. So this is it. Make sure you rename it so you can find it. Press 3. I just put some kind of quick UV on it. Okay. Go to UV editor. Make another one. AI standard surface tier. So we need to make the spec very broad, something like this. It could be a little higher if you feel like you are missing the reflection. Transmission all the way up. Go to the geometry, bump mapping, and there I want to use noise. And the default values are just fine, but you need to change that to polynoise. It slightly gives us a better result. And change the frequency a little higher. Now you can see the preview in there. And in here we are going to use something very low. You can see the effect in here. And that should be working just fine. So I make sure I got bump turned on. So I get rid of subdivision and displacement map, but I only keep the bump to see the effect a little better. And I just put that in there. So we receive kind of bubbly, random effect in there. I think this is nice. And I get rid of this delete. Not to have intersection in there. Just zoom in. So I make the effect a little more broad. IR higher. Just drop to 0. Something like 2. Frequency 12. Let's see that again. Yeah, it becomes too much shiny. I need to decrease that a little. Go back to noise, and noise is the master commander in here, so grab it, just drop it down. If you feel like it is so busy, just drop this down, decrease that, and you'll be fine. As you can see, now we are receiving a very nice effect going on in there, as you see. And again, if you feel like this line is bothering you, just make totally a straight UV, like the Caruncle part that I mentioned that before, and get rid of this line. And also you can do some opacity changing in here. Go to opacity, just drop this down a little. Hide that a little. Yeah, this is natural. And a little long, we need to make that shorter. It's a little long if you compare it to this. It needs to be a little shorter, but just keep it like that for now. Just quickly I change it. Hide this. Grab the Caruncle. Hold down Control. And you can do this, move it down, or just hold on Shift and go to the slide and middle mouse and drag it down. Yeah, I think this is okay. Yeah, that's nice. Turn this back on. and three. Just, you know, make some kind of clear render to see the imperfections and stuff. And also I grab this needs so much tweak, but it's okay for the tutorial. Yeah, I just change the light, you know, position a little. Okay, I give it, you know, some time to render. Okay, I put the light lower. And I see the effect. And I got everything turned on. I got the bomb, displacement, map, and subdivision turned on. So I put the light a little lower so I can catch now some light in there. And I think that this should be a little bigger. I hide the cornea, go to my texture in here, make this slightly bigger, just a touch, yeah. And I make the transition smooth for the iris. So this is the iris. So I go to opacity. And I make this smoother and smaller. And I go back to cornea. And I put back the iris a little. And also I wanna make the masking of the cornea a little smoother. Now some of the stuff is missing. I need to come back to ZBrush and repaint this area and this area. But I don't do that in this tutorial. I think that's okay for the purpose of the tutorial. And I need to move the iris a little to the left because we changed the masking. And come back to my cornea and decrease this exposure a little bit to make it a little more saturated. And we could work on the displacement map of the cornea. Yeah, it seems better. Okay, that's it, and thanks a lot for watching. Always tweak your work, as much as possible. And this was something that I did only for purpose of the quick tutorial, and that's it, because always it needs and takes lots of work to make appealing work. So thank you.